Look, we need to completely bust this massive, exhausting myth right now. You absolutely do not need a six-figure salary, and you definitely don't need some secret million-dollar trust fund to finally feel wealthy. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating mechanics of wealth building and the psychology behind it to reveal the actual mathematically proven number that changes literally everything about your relationship with money.
So, if you ask most of those internet financial gurus, they're going to confidently tell you that the magic number is $1,000,000. They say you need 7 figures to finally stop sweating over your grocery bills at the checkout line. Or maybe they'll say 100 grand salary is the finish line. But honestly, they are missing a much smaller, almost invisible barrier, and it's one you can cross way, way sooner.
The real game changer? It's exactly $20,000. Now I know what you're thinking. 20 grand? That sounds surprisingly low. But think of building wealth like trying to push a massive, incredibly heavy boulder up a steep hill. Getting it started is pure agony, right? You're sweating, you're straining, and you're barely moving an inch. But hitting $20,000, that is the exact crest of the hill. It's the exact moment where pushing that financial boulder turns into gravity finally working in your favor.
To understand why, we have to look at what's happening in your head. Before you hit this threshold, your brain is literally hijacked by what psychologists call survival mode. Every single decision is filtered through fear and scarcity. You're just reacting to short-term threats, like, staying at a miserable job just so you can make rent. But crossing that $20,000 mark, it unlocks wealth-building mode. Your mental bandwidth is suddenly freed up, allowing you to proactively hunt for growth instead of just trying to survive the week.
And it's not just theory. The data totally backs this up. Research from Vanguard shows that having just $2,000 in emergency savings gives people a massive 21% boost in their overall financial well-being. But here's the kicker. When you push that cushion to cover 3 to 6 months of expenses, which for most folks lands right around that $20,000 mark, you get an additional 13% well-being boost. You've literally bought yourself the mental breathing room to start designing your future.
Okay, so the psychological shift is huge. But let's shift gears for a second, because the psychology is only half of the dual engine powering this threshold. The other half? It's pure, unstoppable mathematics. Why does the actual timeline to build wealth suddenly shrink once you hit this magic number? Well, let's look at the incredible power of momentum. Let's assume you're getting an 8% return and saving $1,000 a month. Grinding out that first $20,000 is going to take about 19 grueling months. But your second 20 grand? That doesn't take 19 months. It only takes 17. You did the exact same amount of work, but you shaved off 2 full months. And it gets almost comical later on. By the time your portfolio hits $400,000, it generates its next 20 grand in just 5 months. This happens because of scale. When you have $20,000 invested at an 8% return, that is $1,600 flowing directly into your account over a year without you lifting a single finger. Seriously, that is money you did not have to clock in for. It just showed up simply because your existing money was working relentlessly on your behalf. Those small percentage wins finally start translating into real, heavy financial progress.
But, and misses a big but, getting to that first peak demands a profound identity shift. To save that initial 20 grand, you have to forge the most important financial habits you will ever possess. You have to track your dollars meticulously. You have to learn to say no to things you want right this second. You have to resist shiny objects. And you have to do all of this consistently for months, maybe years. You are proving to yourself, once and for all, that you control your money, not the other way around. Once those habits lock in and you finally cross that $20,000 threshold, your reality actually warps. Think about it. What used to be a catastrophic financial disaster, like a broken down car or your laptop suddenly dying, instantly downgrades to a mere minor inconvenience. A dead laptop goes from a crisis that derails your entire month to simply an excuse to upgrade to a better model.
And honestly, it gets better. You suddenly have the mental clarity to spot opportunities you previously had to ignore out of sheer necessity. Because you aren't living on the edge of the cliff anymore, you can actually consider throwing 5 grand into a friend's promising startup. You can run the numbers on a killer rental property instead of just feeling envious of it. You can pay for a career-boosting conference your company won't cover, knowing for a fact the return on investment will pay off tenfold.
You also finally stop agonizing over the micro decisions. Look, when you're broke, you obsess over $3 coffees or buying generic cereal, right? Because every single dollar feels like life or death. But with a solid foundation beneath you, you realize those tiny decisions don't actually make or break your future. This totally liberates your energy to optimize the big decisions that actually move the needle. Things like your housing costs, maximizing your income, and your overall investment strategy.
Which brings us to an absolutely massive career advantage. Hitting this number gives you what we call walking away money. It means you are no longer trapped in a toxic job with a terrible boss just so you can survive until next Friday. You get to negotiate from a position of absolute strength, knowing you could literally walk out the door tomorrow and be perfectly fine for months while you find something better.
And the beautiful irony here? You usually never even need to use that walking away money. Just knowing you have the option to quit completely rewires how you show up at work. You become more confident, more assertive. You push back on unreasonable demands. You actually ask for the raise you deserve, and people notice that energy. It creates this incredible positive feedback loop that accelerates your career and your wealth.
Now, we do need to talk about the dark side of this milestone. It's a real danger zone, because right when people finally feel this incredible sense of psychological relief, they often stumble headfirst into a devastating, wealth-destroying trap.
I call it the freedom trap. People hit $20,000, they feel a little wealthy for the first time, and they immediately blow their hard-earned foundation. They drop it on an expensive vacation they feel they deserve, or a down payment on a house they can't actually afford, or, worst of all, a shiny new car. They treat that money as a reward for good behavior, rather than the critical seed of their future financial independence. Let's actually look at the math on that car mistake, because it will blow your mind. The moment you drive a new car off the lot, it loses about 20% of its value. Instantly. You are actively destroying your wealth. When you factor in opportunity cost, spending $30,000 on a car today is essentially destroying a potential $200,000 if that exact same money had simply been left alone to compound an investment account over 20 years. This highlights a completely crucial mindset shift. Going forward, every major purchase must be filtered strictly through the lens of opportunity cost. You have to stop asking the classic dealership question, can I afford the monthly payment, and start asking, what is this really costing my future freedom? Because that shiny car payment might make you look and feel wealthy to the people down the street, but it is the exact thing keeping you poor.
Ultimately, reaching $20,000 isn't going to magically make you filthy rich overnight. But as we've explored in this explainer, it fundamentally rewires your brain. It is the definitive line in the sand between merely surviving and truly thriving. It is the monumental shift from constantly reacting to whatever life throws at you to finally having the power and the breathing room to intentionally design the life you actually want.
So, I want to leave you with this provocative thought to chew on. What is the one financial micro-decision you can stop stressing over today, right now, so you can redirect that mental energy into building that $20,000 foundation? Your future self is desperately counting on you to start building it today. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and remember, keep pushing until gravity is on your side.